It's about 9 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, January 10th, 2023. It's like 35 degrees out here, maybe closer to 40. It's supposed to get up to 60 today. Tomorrow it's going to get up to 68. So we're going to have some warm weather here for a couple of days at least. There's some frozen ice, just a little bit. Like I guess we got a little frost last night. But anyway, the cows are ready to move. I got a bale of hay set up for them to move to this afternoon. I was thinking of doing it this morning. I'm going to head to town and get some minerals, probably a couple protein buckets, one for the cows, one for the bulls. And then, we'll get started feeding them protein. But the thing I wanted to talk about since I came back, and now that the microphone seems to be better, this new microphone I have has a condenser built into the microphone, if you know what that means. So anyway, I'm just going to walk over here. So this is the southern third of the northern half, right? So this is where I was grazing them, where they're eating hay off the ground. And I watched this video by Jim Garish. I'm going to try to link to it in the description below. So Jim Garish, if you don't know who he is, it's kind of important to know who these guys are and where they come from and what their thing is, right? So Jim Garish, he's up in Idaho. He used to be in Missouri, then he moved up to Idaho like 20, 30 years ago, something like that. And he's a grazer, Greg Judy style grazer. And up in Idaho, he started grazing again. He was going to retire, but he started grazing again. And he learned a couple things about drought. And so this video that I'm referencing, he's talking, the principal topic is drought, but really it's about how to grow grass, right? And part of it's about drought. You can see the manures piling up. That's a sure sign that they're not getting enough protein. Anyway, the theme of the video, the theme of the talk is that if you're buying hay and feed, you're probably not making as much money as you can, right? Ideally, all your inputs would be free: water, from rain, and then sunlight, right? And so your drought strategy isn't a strategy of when do you pull out the hay. It's a strategy of how do you keep your fields stocked at the right stocking density, stocking rate, right? So there's two numbers you need to worry about. They're not numbers that you're going to know the answer to, but they're going to be concepts more that you kind of understand. The first concept is capacity, right? How much your field can have, how many cows your field can feed. And so he says that you need to learn what that number is. Like, the reason why is because if you have too many cows, you're going to run out of grass. You have to sell those cows, right? And you want to sell those cows sooner rather than later, especially if you're getting a drought. I want to look at this grass that I let grow. It looks beautiful. It really does. Anyway, so you need to know how much your field can tolerate, how much your field can support, right? So the way you do that is you measure the grass and you monitor how much the cows are eating. And eventually you'll understand how to look at a pasture and say, oh, I can get this many days of grazing out of it with my cows. That's the important number. It's time, not area, right? One of the mistakes, and I use that word really generally, really loosely. One of the mistakes I made starting off grazing is I was grazing by area, right? So I was taking up my field and cutting it up to pieces and just grazing mindlessly, right? What I should have been doing is figuring out how much grass I have in the field, right? Moving my cows through the field at the right rate so that they get fed and everything, but also figuring out before I ran out of grass that I would run out of grass, right? So I needed to be estimating how much grass I had and how much time that bought me. So it's a property of time, not area, right? So that's one of the takeaways I got, is you need to know how many more days of grass do you have, right? And even if there's no drought coming, Well, you never know a drought until after it's already come. But even if there is no drought, you need to know how much time you have because you need to schedule out rotations so that the grass has plenty of time to recover, right? And he says 3 blades, I think was the number he used. He says if you have 3 blades, it's ready to graze again. I don't know if that's particular to the species of grass that he's running. Look at the size of this grass here. Look at that. I guess I'll walk through the stockpile while I talk. The cows are upset with me for obvious reasons. Anyway, so you need to know the time because it takes time for the grass to recover. And depending on the time of year, it will take longer or shorter to recover, right? In the spring, it could be recovered in as little as 4 weeks, right? Maybe less, right? In the summer, it might take a little longer. In the winter, obviously, not much is growing. So winter recovery is going to be even longer, right? And so you need to know how much time you have, right? So that's kind of takeaway number one is you're measuring time. You got to figure out time. Like how many days of grazing do I have before I run out of grass? How many days can I wait before I bring them back to this paddock, right? And that's what you got to be thinking about. The other thing that he talked about is the effect of this sort of grazing. And one of the effects, and you can go watch Greg Judy's videos, especially recently because he's been in a 2-year drought. One of the effects is that the grass that you do have in your pasture, and it's important you have grass, actually captures the rainfall and helps it get into the ground. And so you don't have runoff, right? And so if you're in one of these climates where you only get 8 inches of rain a year on a good year, you need to capture all 8 of those inches. You can't have it running off into the river, right? And driving through that part of the country, there's lots of hills, there's lots of little streams and rivers and stuff, and you're going to have snow melt. I think a lot of the precipitation comes from the snow, doesn't it? Right? And so as that snow melts, it needs to get into the ground. That means that before the snow comes, you need lots of grass to capture the water that's going to melt off the snow in the spring, right? Here, I obviously don't have that problem. I'm not worried about snow. If I do get snow, it's only going to last for a few days. One of the problems is we get too much rain sometimes, right? And so if you measure the amount of rain that falls, the amount of grass you'll get is proportional. So if you get twice as much rain in a year, you should get twice as much grass, assuming all that water gets into the ground, right? None of it's runoff, right? So I should be measuring carefully the rainfall I get. I should be estimating how much is running off and what's happening there, right? This is weird. This is like a well-grazed part of my pasture with lots of these prickle bushes. Hopefully the sheep will do a number on them, right? But anyway, yeah, so rainfall is proportional to grass growth up until a certain point. I don't know if this was from his talk or another talk, but no, I won't mention that. It's not important. Okay, the last little thing is your drought strategy. Like what happens when you run out of grass and it's not raining, okay? So because you're estimating how much you have, he says every 2 weeks, go out in the field, go measure your grass, how much you have, how much time it buys you, right, with your current load. If you realize that you're out of grass, and he says don't trust the weather reports. One of the key things about droughts is you start hoping that 30% turns into a 90% chance of rain. It never does, right? 30% is not a good chance of rain. Don't bet your future on it, right? So if you're seeing that you don't have enough grass for the cows you have right now, you have to get rid of cows. And this is a suggestion that he had that I think is really smart and something I'm not doing. But he says you have to diversify your herd. If you have a cow-calf pair operation, if all of your animal assets are cow-calves and you have to lighten the load, you have to get rid of half your cows or whatever, you're not going to get a very good price, right? Even if you do see it early and you sell your cows early. He says he recommends like diversifying, do like a stocking operation as well. And the stockers are really easy to get rid of. They get a pretty good price no matter what time of year you sell them, right? And so if you detect a drought is coming and half of your animal assets, your animal units are in stock, in your stocking operation, then you can just, sell your stocking cows, your steer, and that way, um, you're getting a good price for the animals you sell. You're more confident. You're more willing to sell early rather than late because you know that you'll get a good price. You'll get a better price if you sell early than late, right? So you're measuring your grass. Every 2 weeks, you go out into your entire pasture, you eyeball it, you calculate how much grass you have, you watch your cows rotate through the field, you calculate how much they left behind, and then you adjust your predictions accordingly. That's the thing that I'm going to try to do this year, probably starting in spring. Like right now, I have grass in the overstock area here. The stocking, what is it called? Stockpile. This is in the stockpile, by the way. See, this is too much rain. It's got to go down, right? Ooh, the sun feels nice. But anyway, so my goals for 2024. Number one is I'm going to try to go every 2 weeks and measure my field. I'm going to estimate how much grass I have, how many days of grazing I can get. Then I'm going to compare to what I actually get. Right. So every time I leave a section or a row, I'm going to go and look at it again and say, oh, they ate like 50% or 90% or something like that, right? And that way I'll know how much grass I have. I'll be able to improve that prediction. Then the other thing I'm going to do next year is I'm going to get lots of hay, right? I got 66 bales of hay this year. I want to get like 80 bales of hay next year, okay? And the reason for the hay is not so much to feed the cows, but it's my strategy to encourage, man, this grass here is deep. This is nice and deep grass here, and it's still green too. Hopefully come springtime, this will be a feast for the cows. But the extra hay will give me more of a buffer and help me, feed the soil in the areas of the field that are poor, right? That's what I really want to do, is improve the poor areas, maintain the good areas, right? So I think hay is a good strategy to do that. And I'll get hay early in the year. There should be plenty of it. It should be available for a good price. So anyway, that's kind of my story right now. What was the other goal for 2024? Stockpiles. Yes. So Greg Judy recommends in his books, he recommends setting aside a part of your field for the dry periods when the grass isn't growing, right? Stockpiles, right? So this year I have a stockpile set aside for spring. I'm going to have a stockpile set aside for those weird weeks between spring and summer. Look at that, there's some ice there. And is that even ice? It looks like water. No, it's ice. Anyway, stockpiles for the spring to summer transition. I'm not going to do a stockpile for the summer to autumn transition. I never really felt like during that time that the grass doesn't grow. But I will set aside a stockpile for the winter, and I'll see if I can graze all winter long. That's kind of one of my goals, is try to graze all winter long with no hay, right? So I'll probably set aside a stockpile for like to start winter off, once I detect that the grass has stopped growing in autumn, the cool season grass and the warm season grass, then I will move the cows into just 2/3 of the field, graze off the rest, and leave 1/3 for when that. No, that's not right. During the autumn grazing, I'm only going to graze 2/3 of the field, leave 1/3 to grow, and then when I detect the grass has stopped growing, or when I've depleted the other 2/3, then I'll move the cows into that 1/3. So I don't know if you guys have seen the puppies really well, but they've really grown. They have really grown. Anyway, that's kind of my plans for this year. Guys, have a great day. Take care and bye-bye.